I'd like to introduce our guest speaker for this morning. We're pleased to have Laura Mayo with us. Laura lives in Deep River, and she is an advocate and mother of a teenage son who is just coming up into services with us now. Locally, Laura is involved with 2 parent support groups. So Laura, if you'd like to come up and join us.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me okay? I would like to start by saying that I have never spoken publicly about my son and his disability or the effect it has had on the family. When Harold Ripley asked me if I would speak to you today, I felt reluctance and uncertainty, but obviously I agreed anyway. I belong to 2 parent support groups, one of which is supported by Community Living. I am not here today to just speak about my son and family. I am here to represent a great number of families and the commonalities that we share. I acknowledge that as a society, we have made progress in the way individuals with a disability are treated. Institutions are being closed thanks to the efforts of organizations like Community Living and People First. Schools can no longer bar disabled children from entering. And there are people with various disabilities in the workforce because of open-minded employers. We still have far to go. I want to see change in the way individuals with a disability are treated by our education system, our government, and by the public at large. The first thing I would like to speak about is the wait lists for services. It is not enough to know that these wait lists are staggeringly long. But what does it actually mean to an individual with a disability or their family? To give you an example, in 2008, the Ontario government stopped all new funding for the Special Services at Home program. Wait lists for this program alone went from 0 to 7,000 people. Another program called Passports is similarly backlogged. Special Services at Home means a parent can hire a worker to support the family and or the child, regardless of the age of the individual with a disability. This help can represent everything from personal care for the severely disabled individual to homework support for a child struggling at school. Alternatively, Special Services at Home can be used for a worker to take a disabled person out into the community for social interaction and entertainment. Not only can this program provide valuable, enriching opportunities, it can also help a parent suffering from burnout the opportunity to recharge and spend quality time with other family members. Wait lists don't discriminate. They affect all, no matter whether you're a single parent just coming to grips with a heartbreaking diagnosis, or an elderly parent facing health issues yourself while still trying to care for an adult child. According to Statistics Canada, 85.6% of parents, or 3 in 4, reported that their child's disability led to their separation or divorce. Stress, arguments, blame, and burnout are all factors. It makes you wonder whether many situations couldn't be at least partly remedied by addressing these wait lists. Currently, the Government of Ontario has decided to centralize developmental services and has hired an agency to assess all individuals with a disability and categorize them. This means that a family or individual that has already completed the necessary medical forms and filled out massive amounts of invasive, depressing forms only to be put on multi-wait lists will have to do it all again. In our parent support group, few of us have had our numbers come up yet for this assessment, but I can tell you that the mood around the table when this subject comes up is both depressing and anxiety-filled. Yes, we want services. Yes, we want wait lists addressed. But many of us know how ruthless and soul-destroying these assessments can be. I listened to one mother talk about going through the assessment with her daughter who is blind and bound to a wheelchair. She She had to answer the question, what services would it take to allow your dependent to drive a car? Impossible was not considered an acceptable response, and the mother was required to give suggestions related to a particular service or support. Another mother talked about how the assessment officer pushed her to minimize the disability of her adult child when answering the questions, as to fall into a category of less support. Parents and individuals are sick and tired of answering humiliating questions time and again, only to be placed on wait lists. My son will be turning 18 in a month, and he has spent the last 15 years on one wait list or another. Some of those lists, he actually became too old to be on them before he came anywhere close to the top of receiving services. He is currently on 3 wait lists. Some parents feel that far too often the agencies in place to support those with a disability are more concerned with their own employment, budgets, and transformation than those needing services. Developmental services exist solely for the benefit of people with disabilities and their families. Those employed in that sector must respect and advance the rights of disabled individuals, model leadership and self-direction, while supporting their inclusion and full citizenship in Ontario society. Through my involvement with parent support groups, I hear many stories similar to mine, and some much, much worse. That is one of the reasons why support groups are so important. Parents facing similar issues have an opportunity to share their stories, give advice based on successes in their own family, and acknowledge that they are stronger than they ever knew they could be. Our education system could do a much better job supporting students with disabilities than it does. Did you know that many disabled students are forced to leave the communities where their family, neighbors, and peers live to attend school in another district? Some students with disabilities are told they simply cannot attend their local school. I know of a parent right now who can see the local high school from her front door, but her child is not allowed to attend that school and must be bused to a high school in another community. In a situation where acceptance among other kids is so vital to a disabled child, why are they being separated from the kids they went to elementary school with and forced to start over at a new school at a critical junction of their life? Wouldn't that be hard for anyone? To make matters worse, students with a disability are often excluded from the classes that they would like to take in high school because of class caps. In other words, students needing an interest class to complete a diploma are deemed more important than a disabled student wanting to take that same class as an interest or work skills fulfillment. Does this not mean that the student already struggling is put at a further disadvantage? This needs to stop. All students should be deemed equally important in the eyes of our education system and society. When more effort is put into all children when they pass through our school system, less support is needed after graduation. I would now like to speak about life after high school. Adults receiving funds under the Ontario Disability Support Program, commonly known as the disability pension, are facing mounting poverty. For 11 years prior to 2004, there were no increases to the benefit amount, and since 2004, it has only been increased by the cost of living. A basic pension pays around $940 per month, or $11,280 per year. Think about that. Approximately $11,000 per year. That means a person with a disability needs to find a place to live, pay utilities, buy clothes, food, other living expenses, and cover their transportation costs for around $940 per month. Since the vast majority of people with a disability don't have a driver's license, or in fact could never afford to buy a car, living in an area without public transportation also means hiring a taxi to get out into the community. On $940 disability person is lucky enough to have funding under special services at home, they might be able to hire a worker to assist them out in the community. Otherwise, they would have to hire someone out of the pension amount. That is impossible. Current support amounts are 40% below the poverty line. Our parent support group recently had the opportunity to speak to a real estate agent that claimed that on many occasions she had been hired to sell a house only to find a basement apartment that contained a person living with a disability. She spoke of the deplorable conditions that she had seen and how some of these cases bordered on abuse. Poverty is ugly. It is hard for a parent to hear this, but it is a reality we all must face. I have to say that through my involvement with support groups, from papers I've read and interviews I've watched, the number one concern parents have when raising a child with a disability is their own death. While most parents acknowledge and accept that they will die, possibly long before their children, it doesn't strike the same fear into their hearts as a parent caring for a child with a disability. We fear what will happen to our children, no matter how old they are. Where will they live? Who will care for them once we're gone? Will they be okay? Will there be supports in place to help them, or will they either fall through the cracks or be taken advantage of by others? We are truly a group of parents that wish we could live forever. Currently, there are over 1,450 parents in Ontario over the age of 70 still providing primary care for their disabled adult children. 3% of parents are over the age of 90. I have an 18-year-old child, and I am tired and worn out some days. I can't imagine how these elderly parents even do it. Many people who experience disabilities live lives of extreme loneliness and isolation. My son is one of them. Many depend exclusively on their families for companionship. Left without family, people with disabilities often rely on paid workers for companionship, and that is only if they are lucky enough to be able to afford it. I think about what it must be like for my son and all others in the same position as him. The value of friendship cannot be overrated. I would like each of you to imagine for just a moment what your lives would be like on a day-to-day basis if you seldom had a friend call, didn't have a person in your life you could turn to for help or moral support, and on top of that, you live so far below the poverty line that you couldn't even hire some help. Imagine it. It's not a very nice feeling, is it? This cycle can be changed. Don't for a second think otherwise. It starts with the proper support and resources from the time a child is diagnosed with a disability. It continues with a school system that gives every opportunity to a student struggling to reach their full potential and become job ready, thus sometimes avoiding the support trap. It is further supported by a government and society that places some value and dignity into support programs and workplace inclusion. My dream is that all levels of society stop accepting the current status quo. Begin to notice and question how our schools, government, and neighbors treat those with a disability and speak up. Ask how you can personally help someone living with a disability. Keep in mind that not all people with a disability were born that way. Sometimes life has a way of changing quickly, and it could be you needing services one day or living on a meager disability pension. Thank you for listening to me.